Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice for radio. And although we've been looking at a lot of new cards lately, and there's a few more to look at, we will continue on. There is a deck we need to talk about. Because you see, in Offenbach, right outside of Frankfurt this past weekend, we had the largest Pokemon TCG regional we've ever had in Europe. And the lovely Sonderwatchik, my apologies for the pronunciation, went and got top 8 with Wailord Steelix. And kind of Hooper in there as well. It's a weird deck, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very weird deck. So we need to have a look at it. I like looking at weird decks, and ladies and gentlemen, this absolutely qualifies. So the biggest Pokemon line we've got here is Steelix. Free Onyx, free Steelix. Onyx does have 100 HP, that's quite nice. But what's way more exciting here is Steelix, a non-GX Pokemon with 190 HP. And a resistance to Psychic, which is really good for stuff like Garbodor. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a Pokemon with a whole bunch of potential. But I'm going to actually skip ahead. We're going to go outside of the usual order, because what we see Sonder playing here, 1 Rainbow Energy, 1 Counter Energy. This is not an attacking deck at all. Now, Counter Energy actually becomes really good. You're not really attacking. You are going for, shall we say, more of a stalling deck, so Counter Energy will work. You'll usually be behind on prizes. I mean, maybe you use a Tail Crush with Steelix. It's really not something you're going to be relying on very often at all. Though it is there as an option. It's mostly there as a wall. As for Wailord, we actually see one of each Wailmer, and we see a Wailord here. Now, they've both got 120 HP, they've both got a retreat cost of 3, and honestly, we're not really expecting to be attacking with either of them. The one from Celestial Storm does have Wave Swallower, which can do a little bit of healing, but you'd have to get your Rainbow Energy and your Counter Energy and hope your opponent never plays something like an Enhanced Hammer. It's an option, but really it's just 120 HP basic. With the Wailord, we ain't attacking. We've got 220 HP. Given that Wailord's got 220 HP, how come that's a 1-1 line, whereas Steelix is a free line? And the reason's very simple. People are playing Tapu Bulu at the moment. And people are playing Golisopod at the moment. And people are playing Delmise at the moment. People are playing Grass Pokemon. Grass Pokemon are seeing play, so you kind of have to respect that. Grass weakness is not the best to have at the moment. Now, I suppose some people are playing Fire Pokemon, but generally speaking, it's stuff like Ho-Oh, which is doing a redonk amount of damage anyway, so it's not such a big concern, though that will go through your Steelix. So even though you got 30 less HP, you got a much better weakness, so it's worth doing. And then, of course, we should remember that Steelix can use Metal Frying Pan, which does unfortunately probably make it better than Wailord, but we'll talk more about that in a moment. Then, of course, we see some Hooper from Shining Legends. This is not a new card. This is a card that's seen quite a lot of play for quite a lot of time. 120 HP, but an ability which prevents all effective attacks, including damage, done by Pokemon EX and GX. Now, this is not quite as reliable as it used to be, because stuff like Shining Lugia is seeing a fair amount of play. It did get, I think it was top 4 at this particular tournament, and that can hit for 120. And Baby Buzz, Haynek, is seeing a lot of play, and that can hit for 120. So it's not quite as safe as it used to be. And of course, Baby Buzz here is hitting for weakness. So quite frankly, it's not as safe as it used to be. It's why players kind of have to go for Steelix and Wailord now, rather than just going full Hooper. Full Hooper doesn't work anymore. Full Hooper is too vulnerable. You see, Shrine of Punishment came out, and Shrine of Punishment made a whole bunch of people go, hey, hang on a second, We should do that. We should play that, and then we can play a non-GX deck. And that's what people have done, which means Hooper's not as reliable. As for other Pokemon, we see one Oranguru here. It's not the one with Instruct to draw some cards. It's the one from Ultra Prism that puts any free cards on the bottom of your deck. As we're going to see, there's an awful lot of one-offs and stuff in this deck, so you really do need to be able to recover resources, and in that, Oranguru's got your back. And we see a Tapu Lele, but it's not Tapu Lele GX, seeing play for the Wonder Tag ability. It's actually Tapu Lele from Ultra Prism that moves around damage counters. Now, this one you actually will be attacking with. Psywave does 20 damage times the amount of energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon, Rayquaza, which is quite nice. And then the GX attack lets you rearrange damage. Now, by now, you've probably guessed this is going to be a deck that plays Shrine of Punishment. So although you're not a big attacking deck, against GX decks, you should be putting a fair amount of damage on the field with Shrine of Punishment, so Magical Swap can move it around. One of the ways you take out a stall deck like this is just putting lots and lots of energy on the one Pokemon that can attack. So Psywave punishes them for doing so, and Magical Swap moves damage around, and that is fun. And the final Pokemon we see here is not one that we're really expecting to see a lot of play. It's Articuno GX. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Articuno GX. And it's here for the GX attack, because you're not playing enough energy to use Ice Wing. You're just not, because it can't use counter energy. But Cold Crush GX discards all energy from both active Pokemon. So this is your 1GX Pokemon, it's your 1GX attack for the turn. You pop a Rainbow Energy on Articuno, you discard the Rainbow Energy from Articuno, which is fine, you don't mind doing that, while also discarding all the energy of your opponent's active. Again, we saw this with Tapu Lele not 2 minutes ago. Your opponent may try building up one Pokemon with all the energy. This is a way to punish them for doing so. Does mean you've got a GX Pokemon, but hopefully you won't use it unless you're desperate. But as with all of these stall decks, it's really down to the supporter line. Obviously, we see Cynthia. It's the best supporter card in the format for drawing cards. Steven's Resolve becomes an amazing card here. You get to search your deck for any free cards and then end your turn, but it's super, super rare you'll be attacking. So actually, this becomes just flat out amazing, guarantees you got the right cards for next turn. Free Ace Roller so that you can pick up and heal your Pokemon. Again, what you're doing here is trying to stall your opponent and deck them out. Healing is good. We see free copies of Lusamine. Lusamine gets your supporter cards back from the discard pile, like for instance Ace Roller. Or Plumeria. Discard 2 cards from your hand, discard an energy from your opponent's Pokemon. Any one of your opponent's Pokemon. Yeah, you see, this is a deck where you've got to get rid of all their energy, or else they'll just keep attacking and eventually win. Plumeria does that nicely. Articuno's great as a, they've got 5 energy on kind of card. Plumeria comes in a bit earlier to stop them. We got Gladion here. Now, Gladion gets cards from your prizes, but you're not really taking prizes, so if something you want ends up prized, you're not able to get it. That's where Gladion comes in. One Pokemon fan club just to search out your basic Pokemon here, because you still need to get your basics out and set up. One Copycat, because your opponent may well end up holding cards in hand, waiting for that one explosive turn, so you're not disrupting them. You can take advantage of that with Copycat. One copy of Tate and Liza, just because it's a decent draw supporter, and you're already playing for Cynthia, though the fact you can switch is good. One Team Skull Grunt to punish people who have energy in their hand that they don't want to be attacking with. Keep it in their hand, I'll attach it only when I'm ready to attack, because if you leave it on there, your opponent can get rid of it. Okay, so just play a Team Skull Grunt and get rid of it from their hand. Great. One copy of Guzma to drag stuff off the bench. If you're really desperate for this, remember Lusamine. And one copy of Looker here, because Looker draws free cards from the bottom of your deck, and Oranguru puts any free cards on the bottom of your deck. I'm hoping at this stage you can see the combo with that quite nicely. This is great recovery. Between this and stuff like Lucamine, you can basically have infinite Ace Roller for the entire game, or infinite the next card, Max Potion. You need to be healing. You're not playing any energy. You can roll with Max Potion quite nicely to heal. Orangaroo makes sure you've got Max Potion and Ace Roller for days. If your opponent can KO, you basically lose the game. So, bigger attacks need more energy. You play a lot of energy denial. Little attacks that whittle away, take a few turns. Max Potion and Ace Roller stop them nicely. 3 copies of Enhanced Hammer, so if your opponent plays any special energy, you can get rid of it nice and quickly. 2 copies of Nest Ball to help you get your basic Pokemon out. If you don't set up, they can knock out your only Pokemon and you lose. 2 copies of Counter Catcher. This is one of the reasons we only play 1 Guzma. You're not taking prizes, you're trying to deck your opponent out. So you'll basically always be behind on prizes, so you might as well play a card which is good if you're behind on prizes. 2 copies of Crushing Hammer because you need to be able to get rid of basic Pokemon. And Plumeria's fine, but it's not an every turn kind of card. You've got to discard cards from your hand. It's a supporter. Crushing Hammer's quite nice. 1 copy of Acrobike just for a tiny little bit of extra draw power. 1 copy of Rescue Stretcher to try and get your Pokemon back. And 2 copies of Metal Frying Pan. Now, we mentioned this very briefly earlier, but Metal Frying Pan means you take 30 less from attacks, and you have no weakness. So although Wailord's got 220 HP, with this attack, Steelix has 220 HP, and no weakness. Now, your opponent can always play a Field Blower to get rid of it, but remember, Orangaroo can get it back. So in theory, you should be able to make sure that your opponent runs out of Field Blower before you run out of Metal Frying Pan. That's when it becomes really good. 1 copy of Bodybuilding Dumbbells to give yourself a little bit of extra beef. 2 copies of Shrine of Punishment to put damage counters on EXs and GXs like we talked about earlier. And 1 copy of Brooklet Hill. I mean, it's not amazing, but it helps you get your Wailmers and it helps you get your Articuno. It's not the best use in a deck like this, which is why you're only playing 1, but it could still be handy. And remember, even though you're only playing 1, you've got Steven's Resolve. Here's the entire list. It comes from, stop me if you've heard this before, limitlesstcg.com/tournaments. And even though there's a lot of one-offs here, you've got Steven's Resolve to search them out, Orangaroo to get them back. It's a weird deck, it's a difficult to play deck, but ladies and gentlemen, it's a deck that works beautifully when it's in the right hands. That's how it gets 7th in over 500 people. Yowza. So now I want to hear from you guys. Do you think this deck is credible? Do you think this deck is really good? Or do you think it's not going to hold up in the long run? Let me know in the comment section, ladies and gentlemen. Go nuts. But do please remember the rule. Be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.